So today I thought I'd make a video that's not about my Persona opinions, and instead take the time to acknowledge that other people have opinions too. Fan polls and player surveys are a fun little distraction. It's always interesting to see how the player base will answer certain questions. It kinda feels like I'm getting to know the fan base better and learning where exactly their priorities lie. Most of you watching this are from the West, so I'm sure most of you are sick of hearing the opinions of the Western fandom. From the general consensus to which we're already accustomed to the really dogshit takes that nobody asked for. What do the Japanese fanbase think? What does Southeast Asia in general think about the series? Why keep acting like everything revolves around us? So today, I'll be looking primarily at non-Western surveys and polls. Let's see where we agree and where we wildly differ. I think you'll find this quite interesting because I know I did when I first saw these numbers. And of course, I'll provide links to all these questionnaire results in the description. First, let's take a look at the Dengeki PlayStation's Persona 5 survey from 2016. This ran from August 19th to the 23rd. Something worth noting is that most of these surveys I'm citing do not provide sample sizes, so don't place too much weight on my speculations here. These are fresh numbers from when the game was still new. We'll go straight down the list here. First question was a simple age and gender question. So the target demographic of Persona is like teenagers, right? You know, high schoolers? The games are all about them, and the reason they went in that direction is because people really liked the high school setting of Shin Megami Tensei If. You would think that the largest age demographic would therefore be just that. But it's actually people in their 20s, taking up 52.6% of respondents. You want to know the second largest demographic? People in their 30s. I'm not judging here, by the way. Hell, I'm probably still going to be playing Persona when I'm 30. They take up 23.1% of respondents. Respondents between 10 to 19 only take up about 19.9%, followed by people 40 and over at 4.4%. Shoutouts to the 40 plus player base. I salute you. From what I've been told, your high school years are considered the best years of your life in Japan. Adulthood is a real struggle over there, especially given their work culture. So I guess the real appeal of the high school setting isn't really for high schoolers, it's mainly just a cathartic thing for adults reminiscing on simpler times in their lives. That's not really the reason I play these games, but I've never really taken an issue with the high school setting. Not one of those people saying how tired they are of it. It's a very large part of the appeal. Next, you'll be telling me they should get rid of turn-based battles, and dungeons, and personas. You don't really see Japan glamorizing college life, so I'm assuming it's probably not that great over there. You want to know something else? The gender ratio is a lot closer than the age ratio. It's 56.5% male to 43.5% female. Wait, so you're telling me almost half the Persona 5 player base is female? My analytics look nothing like this! The next question is, what was the buyer's first Persona game? This is excluding Persona 5, of course. The two most answered games were Persona 4 Golden and Persona 3 Portable. You'll notice that more people started with the handheld versions of Persona 3 and 4 over their console counterparts. I've been told that handheld systems are just heavily preferred over in Japan, and this is kind of an exemplary case. You'll also notice that more people have started with the original Persona 3 than Persona 3 FES. Japanese people don't seem to care nearly as much for FES as the Western fanbase does. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is unsurprisingly at the bottom. There are just so many factors working against it, honestly. Firstly, it's a sequel to a sequel. Secondly, it deviates from the high school setting their audience was so attached to. What is surprising to me, however, is that more people started with the original Persona 1 on PS1 than the PSP remake, going against the whole handheld favoritism idea I just mentioned earlier. More people have never played a Persona game before than Persona 1 on PSP. It's hard to get a read on how people in Japan feel about re-releases with this data. It distinguishes Persona 1's PS1 and PSP versions, but doesn't do the same for the Persona 2 duology. The next question is asking about which version people will buy. By that, I mean which version of the original. Stuff like PS3 version, PS4 version, Standard Edition, Anniversary Edition, etc. Nothing particularly interesting to me, so I'll just move on. Oh boy, we've reached the character popularity polls. This one will definitely ruffle some jimmies. The questionnaire splits it between the Phantom Thieves and the Confidant characters. Let's look at the Phantom Thieves first. Ryuji is dead last. I've been told that Ryuji is not popular in Japan, so this doesn't surprise me. The top 4 picks were Joker, Makoto, Futaba, and On. Honestly, nothing in these results really surprised me. Now we move on to the Confidant characters. The top 3 spots go to Caroline and Justine, Igor, and Takemi. Akechi and Hifumi are tied at 4th, which is interesting. I'm surprised at Sojiro ranking 2nd to last, and Chihaya and Iwai ranking higher among the lower 8. And apparently, Oya is the least popular confidant in Japan as well as the West. Lastly, there's the personas. From 1st to 7th place, we have Arsene, Johanna, Goemon, Carmen, Milady, and Zoro tied at 5th, Necronomicon, and Captain Kidd. Arsene made more than double the votes of any other persona on this list. Let's look at some more popularity polls, but for Persona 3 and 4 this time. These were made for the releases of Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden's remasters. Each had 4 different polls: Atlas Southeastern Asia, Atlas Asia on Facebook, Atlas Asia on Weibo, and Atlas Korea. For those of you wondering what Weibo is, it's basically just Chinese Tumblr. Oh, and just so you know, the protagonist places first for basically all of these. This applies to both Persona 4 and 3. Let's look at Persona 4 Golden first. Starting with SEA, we have all the girls placing higher than the guys. Out of the girls, Naoto ranked the highest, and Chie ranked the lowest. Out of the guy characters, Kanji ranked higher than Yosuke and Teddy. I guess waifuism won the battle here. The Facebook poll is similar in that all the girls are ranking higher than the guys, but different in where their favoritisms lie. Rise ranked 2nd this time, followed by Yukiko, Naoto, then Chie. This time, Kanji ranked at the bottom. As a Kanji stan, this makes me very sad. He also ranks last in the Weibo poll too, but now Brosuke is ranked 2nd. Good on him. The Atlas Korea results are almost identical to the Facebook results, with the only difference being Chie and Naoto are switched. Some running trends I've noticed is that Teddy and Kanji consistently ranked low, and Rise consistently ranked in the top 3. So based on that, we can speculate that Rise is generally well liked in Asia. Moving on to Persona 3 Portable, we go from an 8-character roster to an 11-character roster. You'll notice that Ken is in last place for the majority of these. For the SEA poll, Koromaru actually makes it into the top 5. He just beat out Yukari. Another interesting thing about this poll is that the female protagonist is outranked by Mitsuru and Aigis. This isn't the case for the rest of the polls. The main protagonist, on the other hand, remains king in all of them. The Facebook poll is mainly dominated by the girls aside from Fuka, but you can see Koromaru sitting in 6th place right there, just threatening to do the same thing again, which I find kinda funny. The top 5 in the Korean poll is more or less the same, but with Mitsuru, Aigis, and Yukari switched around. The interesting part lies in the lower half. Shinjiro ranked the highest among the guys, which is pretty based, honestly. In the Weibo poll, Akihiko finally makes it into the top 5. Junpei, on the other hand, is less fortunate here. He ranks at the bottom, below Ken. This is also the first one where Mitsuru doesn't make the top 5. Fuka seems to be the only girl who consistently ranks low in these polls. Before we move on to the broader polls covering multiple games, I'd like to give a special thanks to my patrons. If you're enjoying the video so far, subscribe for more. I've got lots of fun ideas for future videos. If you'd like to lend a little extra support, consider checking out my Patreon. I give very detailed updates on what projects I'm working on and plan to work on. And on occasion, I'll even give some sneak peeks. If you're not interested, that's perfectly fine. Any way you choose to support me will help. Here's a pretty recent Japanese poll that ran from March 25th to April 1st of this year. This one asked users what their favorite Persona game is. This one actually gives an exact sample size. It's a pretty small one. Only 1,341 total votes. This is for all 13 games. No, not including the mobile games. You're not funny. The lowest ranking game is Persona 4 Arena with exactly 1 vote. Arena Ultimax has 2 votes. Yeah, you'd be pretty hard pressed to find anyone who likes these games more than all the others. I know in the West, people vastly prefer Persona 4 Dancing over 3 and 5. I'm not sure what the preference in Japan is, but all 3 dancing games got the same amount of votes. The fact 3 and 5 got any votes at all is probably controversial with the Western fanbase. Persona Q1 ranked above Q2. I hear most people prefer Q2 among English-speaking viewers, but I actually agree with this placement. Maybe I'll go into more detail about it one day, but I'll leave it at that for now. Unsurprisingly, the highest ranking spin-off is Persona 5 Strikers. However, this game didn't place above any of the mainline games. I usually see this game outranking at least Persona 1. Speaking of which, the mainline Persona games are probably what you're really interested in hearing. Persona 1 placed 5th, with 50 votes. The Persona 2 duology was counted as 1 entry, and they had the nerve to count Arena and Arena Ultimax separately, when Ultimax literally comes with the original Arena story. Persona 2 got 4th place, with 85 votes. Persona 4 placed 3rd, with 304 votes. Between Persona 3 and 5, it was a really close call. Persona 5 only fell short by 27 votes compared to 3, scoring 401 votes. Persona 3 won with 428. That's about 31.9% of all votes. And yes, they lump all versions of the game together, original, FES, and portable. The same was done for Persona 4 and Persona 4 Golden, as well as Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. Voters remarked that they felt Persona 3 established Persona as a series. Man, if only someone made a video about that. Probably the best Persona 3 video out there. That sounds like a video I'd like to see become the most viewed Persona 3 video on YouTube. It should also be noted that apparently Persona 2 and 3 were also voted the highest in terms of interest in a remake. But we can't just end it there, can we? Putting your favorite character against just the other characters in that game is boring. No. You need to assert your character's dominance among all the characters in all the games, except 1 and 2. Shortly before the release of Persona Q2, a popularity poll for the main casts of Persona 3, 4, and 5 was held. All the main casts together make a total roster of 28 playable characters. This poll ran from September 7th to the 17th in 2018. I actually remember seeing these results when they first came out, or at least the top 10, so this will be a nice trip down memory lane for me. We'll start with the lower 18 and work our way up to the top 10. Yukiko is dead last, followed by Fuka. Quite a few characters that I really like also ranked pretty low. Kanji, Yukari, Junpei, and Mitsuru, they ranked below Haru, the character whose defining trait is her lack of screen time. Wanna know what's crazier? She and Akihiko both ranked below Koromaru. The dog made it into the top 20. Unfortunately, Koro is beaten out by the other 2 animal characters. The most shocking part of this poll to me is that Ken ranked higher than most of the Persona 3 cast in this poll. This is in stark contrast to the general Asia polls that we looked at previously. He even ranked above Ryuji and Aigis. There are 3 more Persona 3 characters above him, but we'll get to that later. The last few characters above him are Rise, Teddy, Futaba, Chie, and Naoto. Alright, time for the main event. These are the top 10 among the entire Q2 cast. Makoto Nijima is ranked 10th, with Yusuke right above her in 9th. The most surprising placement on this list by far has got to be Shinjiro, ranking above 2 of the Phantom Thieves. I didn't think Shinjiro would have been so popular. Among Western discussions I've seen, most people are usually pretty indifferent towards him. On Takamaki ranked 7th. I remember when these results were first posted to Twitter, Makoto fans were really mad about how On placed above her. Sadly, I could not find those old tweets. This was long before I had the foresight to screen cap things like that. Of course, Joker and Akechi ended up ranking closely with each other. but I was not expecting Akechi to beat him out by that many votes. The highest ranking non-protagonist character, however, is Yosuke, of all people. The top 3 spots are all protagonists. The female protagonist ranked 3rd, Yu Narukami ranked 2nd, and Makoto Yuki ranked 1st. Looking at the vote counts, Makoto Yuki earned more than double the votes of Narukami, and thousands upon thousands more votes than any other character in this poll. So, it's become blatantly obvious that the protagonists have an unfair advantage over the rest of the characters. A protagonist has come out on top for pretty much every one of these polls. Why is that? Perhaps they love the self-insert and immersion aspect of these games a lot? Regardless, how do you compensate for this? Well, for once, I actually think the way fans on Twitter handle it is a pretty good way to go about it. There are gimmick accounts dedicated to these types of popularity contests. The way they're approached, though, is very different. Instead of asking each user to pick one character among all of them, characters are matched up against each other in a tournament-style bracket. Every time one of these is held, the characters are shuffled and matched up with different characters every time, so that other characters have a better shot at winning. There are still some characters that straight up have no chance of winning no matter what, though. And of course, people get way saltier with these than they do over the official polls. Okay, one last little survey, just as a bonus round, I guess, is this one right here. It's top 22 female party members. Here's the original Japanese, but here's the translation on Persona Central. Alright, so I'm just gonna run through these really fast. I'm not gonna super psychoanalyze these like I did with all the other ones, because I'm pretty sure you get the point now. Alright, so we got Metis, Ayase from Persona 1, Yukino, I'm just everyone you'd expect to appear at the bottom is on the lower half. Then you get to Fuka, Yukari, Yukiko, you get to some of the more modern girls. And then, you get to the top 10. Haru, On, Aigis, Femc, Rise, Naoto, Chie, Futaba, Kasumi Yoshizawa. This is the only survey we've looked at that includes Yoshizawa. And at the top we have Makoto Nijima. So everyone within the top 7, I'd say, at least, well, I guess Aigis too. So everyone within like the top 8, these are all girls who ranked consistently high in pretty much all the past polls, the character popularity polls for individual games, to be more specific. They've all ranked consistently high in all of those past ones, and they appear pretty high here as well. Just wanted to get this out there. I was too lazy to go through and write this part into the script because I'm actually done editing the video at this point. I just sort of discovered this at the last second, and just wanted to add this in as a little addendum. So, what have we all learned today? Today we learned that Japan is very based because they love Persona 3. And I can rest comfortably knowing that I can visit their country without needing to worry about them shitting on my opinions. Hopefully we've all gained some insight on how the Japanese audience, and the wider Asian audience in general, views these games to some small extent. The numbers speak, but they ultimately lack the nuance to give a much clearer picture. But at least we can all agree that Japan has better takes than you.